I'm ready. Yeah.
Is everybody ready?
Oh, it's so bad and roasting. Whenever you're ready, I think we can be ready.
Okay. Okay, everybody, let's get started here with the Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, June 12th. We are recording, so if you're recording, please let us know. And if you could silence your cell phones, that'd be highly appreciated. I'm going to start with the public meeting, public comment for items that have nothing at all to do with anything we're hearing tonight. Okay. So we're going to go into the public hearing notice of intent. Now we have Town Nantucket Jetties Beach Playground item. The applicant is on the phone with the state at the moment. So we're going to move down to the public meeting orders of conditions. And the second item is the Sankaty Head Golf Club, 8 and 18 Hoyks Hollow Road.
Sorry, guys. I have those. We had looked at this last time. This is the Wilkinson style project for that portion. We didn't have any questions about it except for the final condition that's there. We look for a specific number for a nourishment volume. We got back from the narrative. I apologize because my computer's not working. So when you look at the last condition that's listed, there's a number that's there. I want to say it's like 686 cubic yards.
Correct.
That was the amount that replaces the loss from the bank in its totality. If you guys wanted to apply an overage to that, that would be, you would have to do the math for the percentage. But you guys had asked me to get that specific number because we were trying to mine it out of minutes and questions and those kinds of things.
Jeff, can you just remind us how that was calculated? Was it under this sort of the same?
Yeah, so they used they compared the long-term and short-term erosion rates for the length of the bank. It's our pretty typical practice to determine that amount.
And was it multiplied by a factor of?
So that number that they provided is the number that they calculated specifically. There's not an additional overage or anything that's on that number currently.
Did they not provide the bank height? That's what I asked for.
Oh, sorry, they did provide the bank height. I wish my computer was working. But they provided those calculations back to us with the height. They provided like a 4-page explanation to that number when I asked them for the number. Yes. Let me see if I can grab it. Sorry. If you guys want to go through and see if there's any other issues.
Yeah, there is actually on item 25, Jeff. Didn't we discuss with the applicant to get closer to mimicking the real conditions in the bank, to replicate them?
Materials.
The materials, yeah. So that it wouldn't be just fines, but it would actually be, solids, for want of a better word.
Which number is this again?
25, nourishment.
Oh,
So-
25.
To answer your question, Ernie, to get back, and then I'll get back to Ian's question. The height of the bank that they have is the base of the bank is at elevation 12, and then the highest point is at elevation 35. So they calculated that off of a 23-foot bank.
I'd personally like to see a little overage on this. And then we've applied a factor of what, 2.6 or something to.
Well, there's also the beach is not contributing, but they are making it as tight to the bank as possible. But
I would think we'd switch it to about 7 yards per linear foot.
And right now it's at 2.
Yeah, that's what you'd come up with before.
Yeah, it's very small. I mean, they're doing. I mean, this is like North Shore volumes
Right.
they're wanting to do, which I think is kind of ridiculous.
I'm with you.
Works for me.
Agreed.
is that good with everyone else?
Yeah.
Right, so we'll change that condition to read, instead of that total number, that they'll be required to put 7 cubic yards per linear foot per year. And then, Ian, to answer your question, we had discussed, and I apologize for not getting that encapsulated correctly, that they would be taking a series of soil samples from the bank, and that their nourishment material would have to match the composition of those samples.
So could we put that into the condition?
Yes, so we'd have that condition number 25.
Yeah.
That would simply read, so I'm gonna do this kind of on the run. That the nourishment material shall be composed of material that matches the existing coastal bank.
How about cross-section of coastal bank? Or is that too specific?
Well, I think we're going to have to determine kind of how many sample plots we want them to take. So
Okay.
let's say the nourishment material shall be composed of material that matches the existing coastal bank as determined by no less than 10 soil samples across the length of the structure and filed with the commission.
Down the bank too.
Yeah. Or we can put from no less than 10 location. That represent the structure of the bank.
Is there a condition in here saying they need to maintain a walkable beach under normal tide conditions?
1 second. Represent the structure of the bank in cross-section from the toe to the top.
It doesn't actually.
We should have that in there. Right.
All right, so there'd be, what's the last number? Sorry.
39.
39.
So then there'd be a 40.
Yeah.
All right. The applicant shall maintain a walkable beach during normal tidal conditions.
Will they have any responsibility to maintain the Hoyks Hollow access way, or is that all falling on the other project?
I mean, they obviously are going to want to keep it maintained. I think they've indicated, though, they can access their site from their site if needs be.
Their attorney said it was their property.
Yes.
Anything else? happy with the order?
So, move to approve as amended?
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And it passes unanimously.
Ready, there you go.
Okay. Seeing, I don't think we're ready for down in Nantucket, judges. Oh,
Nope.
no, okay.
We'll do that last.
Have to wait. Okay, we're gonna move on to item 3, the Sconset Beach Preservation Fund, 59-119 Baxter Road.
All right, just so for the record, Town Council, George Buchi is on the speakerphone there, so hopefully if you guys have any questions for him or some concerns, I know he had a couple things that we had asked him to clarify, that when you guys are ready to get the information, or if Andy, if you want that kind of off the top, he can provide that clarification and some of that guidance to you. If not, the discussion is your guys to kind of carry forward.
Direction we're going?
Sure.
Okay. So is that, do we, oh, it's coming back. Are we looking for any more information, or is there any more questions, Town Council?
I had a follow-up comment as well.
Sure, go right ahead, George.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and members of the commission, and whoever is interested party present. George Buchi from KP Law, Nantucket Town Council's office. Can you hear me okay? Is it in the tone of voice I'm speaking? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, okay. I just wanted to clarify one issue. I talked more than enough at the last deliberation session, and I appreciate the opportunity to kind of update you as to legal issues involved in the application. I did have just one follow-up comment following what was discussed at the last meeting. With respect to application of the local regulations, so this would be the local bylaw and regulations portion of your decision on this application. I looked at the issue a little bit further, and I just wanted to clarify that if you're applying the quote-unquote substantially improved language of the regulation with respect to pre-78 buildings, which, definitely you're not only within your right to do, but as Ian had pointed out last time, you'd pretty much be not following your obligations if you didn't try to apply regulations as written. But I would clarify that although I have a little bit of a concern about sections of your regulations being less restrictive than the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, I do think that the applicant is entitled to have you apply your regulations as written and in their entirety. So in other words, if you're applying the substantially improved language cited by Ian, I do think that it's advisable for you to apply the full regulation. So in other words, if you want to go ahead and discuss or consider the public infrastructure part of that regulation and apply that, you would be within your rights, and I, in fact, would recommend that you do that. In other words, if you're going to apply any portion of your existing regulation, I would apply the regulation in its entirety as it's written, and that's the way I would recommend structuring that part of your decision, to consider that regulation as a whole. And just one other comment, just again to clarify what I was trying to express at the last meeting. If you look at how your decision would be reviewed, the standard by which it would be reviewed would be whether your decision was arbitrary and capricious or otherwise contrary to law. So I think that a decision either way on the application would not be contrary to law. I think that the way you're structuring your hearing and your deliberations on it, I certainly think that you've been in compliance with the law. And I think that, you know, the issues involving substantive performance standards and the facts that are before you and how to apply that, you're doing that within the letter of the law. So I think whether you deny the project or approve the project, I don't think that either case would be contrary to law. You know, the question would be whether it was arbitrary and capricious based on the evidence that was presented to you during the public hearing. So that is further clarification to why I had recommended you try to focus to the extent you can about the applicable performance standards, you know, and essentially whether you know, the applicant has proven either no adverse effects on the applicable performance standards, or whether, you know, adverse effects have been sufficiently mitigated, if there's a sufficient mitigation plan that you find meets the applicable performance standards. So hopefully with that further clarification, you know, I've given you, you know, a reasonable framework to go forward with your deliberations. I'm going to be here for the whole time of the meeting, so if you have any questions, don't forget about me. I am here and available.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a good place to start. Infrastructure is critical in this application for the vacant lots, especially.
Well, at the local level, so if we're dealing with the state regulations first.
Ian, real quickly, can you get closer to your mic?
Sorry, so, Mr. Chairman,
The state, yeah, well, the state regulations are pretty explicit about this.
so, so would you suggest taking a vote on the state regulations first before discussing the local, or do you want to discuss
That's an
both
interesting
first?
approach.
I'm sorry, you can't hear me?
Sorry, the microphones.
Is your mic on, Ian?
Yeah, it's on. Sorry, you just got to get pretty close to these mics.
You're
Yeah.
right in
They're
there.
not as kind as the ones upstairs.
So I was asking the chairman whether he wanted to vote, have the commission vote on the state regulations first before discussing the local, or whether he wanted to discuss the local as well before taking votes on both. Sorry about the lack of
No.
auditory excellence or whatever.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I just want to maybe get a little more clarification from George. If we're talking about, we're applying the standard of the percentage improvement, 20% improved. George, are you saying we can't at the same time have that and not apply the infrastructure standard? Because it would essentially be cherry picking one out and not the other, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I think that says that exactly. I think that would be that would be my recommended approach, is that if you're going to apply any portion of it, you apply it in its entirety. And that's exactly right. I wouldn't quote unquote cherry pick portions of it. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay. Well, how does everyone feel about going over items with state first? I think in some ways the state is clearer on many items that we're dealing with than the local bylaw. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we kind of went through this
Yeah.
state in a little
Right,
bit of detail.
we've gone through all of
If
it.
you're just talking about infrastructure, I think most all of us can agree that infrastructure is not covered in the state regs, so it would be a negative in reference to the state on this item.
And I mean, and I'll just read what it says about infrastructure in the local.
You need to talk much closer to the microphone.
All right, so infrastructure in our local bylaw. Other
need to
coastal
swallow that
engineering
damn thing.
structures may be permitted only upon a clear showing that no other alternative exists to protect a structure that has not been substantially improved or public infrastructure built prior to 978 from imminent danger. So again, we have to remember, has there been documentation of imminent danger? And is there alternative for infrastructure?
True.
And you're talking about the local regulation.
Yeah.
In the local. Okay.
Jeff, do we have the date of when that,
So I haven't pulled the exact date. I was going through the minutes of when those regulatory changes kind of took hold. And the dates are not super clear, but it came in somewhere in late 2004 into early 2005. I'll be fair in saying I thought about listening to we actually have the audio tapes from those meetings. I just didn't have a chance to sit down and listen to the 3.5 to 4 hour hearings to try to mine the specific date out. Yet.
Well, can we have a discussion about how everybody feels about infrastructure being protected? Or not? And is there a viable alternative access or alternative for infrastructure?
Well, my understanding is, Ben, that the application is for the entire expansion of the geotube.
Understood.
And it would seem to me it's quite clear that really more or less from Butterfly Lane down south, and in fact, there's no imminent danger whatsoever to the infrastructure. And I would say there isn't going north either until where the existing geotubes are. And that was quite clear under the superseding order of conditions that was temporary, that the town and SPPF were granted temporary permission to put the geotubes down until there was an alternative created. So I would say that for the purposes of our discussion, on the expansion, that it doesn't meet those conditions, because we can't cherry pick the expansion. It's either all or nothing. Mm-hmm. So, and
I mean, when I look at infrastructure, I know there were meetings that I asked, please document exactly where infrastructure is in imminent danger. Which properties are we going to be protecting infrastructure? And we really didn't get information. The road infrastructure is within 50 feet here, or, electrical is within 15 feet here. The area where infrastructure is in danger is currently protected by geotubes. The town documented that pretty well, and there's an alternative in place there. So my feeling is we don't have enough information to say where the infrastructure would need protecting. So I don't know that we can really look at that for this project.
If I remember right, the number was 25 feet was imminent danger, and that I think was because the bank had lost up to that much the year that all this started. And so, the fear was if we had another year like that, then the road could be in danger. I mean, and they were worried about it being so close to the road that, it could just spontaneously, or with the heavy truck, fall in and, things like that. So there was concerns like, I think if I remember right, Jeff, do you remember? I think 25 feet rings a bell.
Sure, if I may.
Yeah, please.
So the 25-foot number that came in with the road emergency was a number that was determined by the town's consultant at the time, Malone and McBroom, on the 25-foot distance to the road being concerned for kind of that very purpose, that if you put a heavier vehicle, so if you put a fire truck or something that was up there, there would be some concerns about the structural stability of the physical road itself. And then if there was further erosion to get inside that 25, that was where you really were going to be facing that threat. But that was a number that was determined by the town's engineer at the time in conjunction with SPPF when they were kind of co-applicants on that project and leading up to that project.
Right. I question definitely beyond, there are areas beyond to the north that are definitely getting pretty close to the road as well, that aren't protected at present. So the infrastructure up north, in the farther points, is going to be a concern in the very near future. Did the access road include infrastructure in its incorporation, or was it more just
It's more just was a route of travel.
exactly? So I don't think the idea of infrastructure going into that road or access was really considered.
I mean, I think in the alternative access design, I mean, all of those things are always kind of considered and kept there. And I know there are plans and work at the town level for providing utilities and sewers through alternative route and water and kind of those things. And I mean, that's been talked about even before the geotubes have gone in. So that's there. But I did want to also take a chance to clarify something that Ian had said, because you guys do have the ability, when you're looking at the project to some degree for conditions, you can deal with the length of the structure to some degree, but not, I would recommend against holistic engineering changes, but we've done it before where you regulate things to be on a lot and can adjust that horizontal width that kind of goes on, not necessarily the form and function of the design, but that's even something that we've seen. So it is something where, I'm not saying that you guys want to create a bunch of little mini structures or do something, but if you do feel like it needs to be encapsulated within a certain area, you certainly have the ability to put bounds on what those areas may or may not be. Then that's something that's, I don't want to say fairly commonly done by this commission, but it's definitely been something that we've done before as far as defining what the project area can and cannot be. I would recommend against big engineering changes, but certainly longer or shorter is something that you guys can certainly discuss.
Oh, so you're saying we could discuss tweaking ends?
I think it's something you guys can certainly talk about.
I think that's a concern.
I mean,
The coastal dune, the southern end.
I mean, sorry not to interrupt, Ben, but just to kind of clarify that, I mean, obviously your main role first and foremost is to look at the performance standards and then condition things to meet performance standards. And if that changes the length of something to make the conditions more palatable to the performance standards and work together, that's something that's certainly within the right of the commission to do. I mean, we do it all the time, whether it's planting vegetation or shifting things or moving things, that if you feel that it's necessary to protect the interests, then you guys absolutely have the right to condition things within reason to be able to do.
Good.
Right, because I would have a concern, I would be concerned about trying to re-engineer a project for sure.
Oh,
I totally understand.
trust me, if you guys started down that path, I would also, be the first to say, hey, be careful not to re-engineer it, because it's something that
No,
engineering for any structure is probably far beyond any of us, but mitigating impacts is something that I think is absolutely,
right.
important for you guys to at least review.
Well, I had no idea that the waters could be muddied even further, Jeff. So,
You're welcome, Ian. That's what I'm here to do.
especially right now, I just, I'm sort of speechless because I feel we've got this application before us, and rather than tweaking it, I'm
No, I get
speechless.
it. That's the point. That's the point. I want to feel to read the board on this one for sure. Because the last time I brought that up, there seemed to be no interest in any tweaking. So,
Well, it's interesting information because I think it was looking at the project that was before us in its entirety, in its design entirety.
right.
Right.
But I'll just be candid. One thing that's been tripping me up more than lots of things is the coastal dune at the end, and then we could hold that back out of the 100 feet. So any alteration of a structure in a coastal dune or within 100 feet of a coastal dune shall not have an adverse effect on the coastal dune by, and then it lists a number of conditions.
But none of those properties are in imminent danger.
Well,
So you're establishing, if we start cherry picking,
I disagree. I think they're all in imminent danger based on
imminent,
your
Ben.
imminent, right?
Yes, imminent means, that if I pull a gun out on you,
Easy, Dan, listen.
okay.
Ian, please.
Based on that definition that you handed out last week, imminent, near, not touching, close. I mean, to my mind, that's near. Not touching, but it's close. It's not immediate danger, it's imminent danger.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of the end with the coastal dune, the current project that's on the ground, they came to us at some point this year about putting core on the end. And I questioned them with this application, why isn't that just designed in there? And they said, oh, they had to wait for the bank to erode further to put the core on the end. So we tried to address that being softer, and they kind of just told us no.
Yeah.
And gave us back this application. So that's what worries me about now saying, well, we'll condition if it's softer. We kind of asked for that, and they didn't.
I mean, we asked for it to be shorter, and they
Right,
didn't
so-
blink. But I see beyond, lot 67 down and away to whatever 59. I just don't see them really being in any imminent danger. But I think in between those areas, I think that there's definitely some issues. So, and there's some concerns.
Yeah. I agree. And I don't like the idea of it getting even near the dune field.
No.
I think it's definitely going to accelerate. Given what we've experienced with its performance so far. But what is the feeling of the board on any type of, I don't want to use the word tweaking, because tweaking.
I'm fine with it. I mean, I just think the project before us is way too large. So.
Well, you're okay with the project. How's your feeling about tweaking the project?
I mean, I'm not a coastal engineer.
No,
so my feeling is this is the project before us. We've asked for softer structures. It's on them to kind of tweak it.
Valid point.
To meet the standards. And we've asked on a few occasions for that, and we haven't gotten it. So I don't feel comfortable saying roll it back to this property or make it quar from here, because I would rather see quar for most of it.
Well, I understand the frustration, because for sure, we made suggestions, there was agreements by the applicants, and they didn't seem to carry it over into extension, so I'm sure, I know Ian's point.
Well, I don't want to be rigid about it. And so, I take both Ben and Joe's points, but I do think Ashley is expressing it well. They can always come back. I hesitate to suggest it, but I do feel we're, I agree with Ashley on this one, so.
Well, as you know, I'm opposed to the project in general, but if we do decide to go forward with it, then I think this end with the dunes is where I would shorten it, because basically they're going to have to cover those dunes up. They're going to destroy the dunes to put the project in, which seems to be very contrary to protecting the dunes. And, maybe we could put language in that would say something like they could not extend the project to that length, and as long as the dunes are present. But when the dunes are gone, then give them the option. Something like that. They could come back to the commission and seek an extension at that point.
That's an interesting thought, Ernie. Yeah, I like that.
Oh, the other point I was thinking was, as well as putting returns on adjacent lots. We've never done that in any application. The returns have always been purposely put on the lots where you intended a project to end, so they didn't affect the adjacent lots. So, I mean, I know that the north there's a return on an empty lot. And I'm actually more concerned with the lighthouse property and the effects on it by this design as well. So I think it could be very detrimental to the northern part of the bluff. I assume most people seem to be shaking their heads in agreement on that one.
For most of the issues that the town specialist said is that they were at the end. It was all the end scout that was happening. It wasn't really down beyond that. So that's where I don't really see a problem. I mean, I think the lighthouse is soon to be in danger, but right now I don't see the geotubes causing that problem.
No, but I could see it potentially with the expansion.
I think
of
with
the project.
expansion there
That's
could
what I'm
be some
saying.
issues, but
Yeah.
I think it would be more end scout. It could be the lot next door. so, right adjacent to it. No, I
Right.
mean, that's.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
the
what
gentleman
ends,
said.
right?
117.
The other guy.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think we have to question protecting vacant lots at the end with geotubes, where there's no structure behind them. I think it needs to terminate on a property where there's a structure in danger, would be my feeling.
So like terminating on 115, assuming that building's still there.
Yep.
Okay. How's that feel?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that too, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
That's 2 lots.
Okay. Like I said, I don't want to get too tweaking here. Were there other concerns? Other members?
I would like to discuss sort of the sand bank, I don't know if you will, stockpile. So if this gets a positive order, I'd like to make sure that we have some language that says, you know, you have a year's worth of sand or 2 years worth of sand or something on the island in stock, ready to go, you know, not having to barge it in after a big storm. I think that would be very important.
Smart.
Well,
Yet another of the reasons why I oppose this is because the sand they're using has no relationship to what actually comes out of that naked bluff. And I suppose if we conditioned it that way, I couldn't object. But it's so clear that it bears no relationship that that it's part of one of the many reasons why I have reservations about this project.
And DEP, Jeff, if I could ask again, I think I asked this last time, but DEP only requires grain size compatibility, right? Or something like that. It doesn't necessarily get into the fines and the.
Correct. DEP's guidance on nourishment material is that the material is beach compatible sand. And they determine that through grain size analysis, where they look at just kind of size of the particle and then angularity of the particle and make sure that they're comparable.
And we don't have any local bylaw that is more stringent than that in any way, right?
I mean, you can apply the performance standards. I mean, obviously, if you look into some of them, I mean, you do have some latitude. I mean, it is something, we just did it on the last project where you guys conditioned a different type of material. So that's certainly something that if you feel that's within the interest of, protecting the interest, then you guys obviously can condition whatever you need to make that happen. So if that's looking at that through a little, finer lens, that's certainly something what's in there, because I think if you look at, just as an example, the coastal bank performance standards for the local regulations, there is that, the projects that are not supposed to have an impact, and I don't have the perfect language in front of me, but it's essentially the bank height and stability, and it runs through. And then the last part of that is, and the bank's ability to serve as a sediment source. So if you were trying to meet that performance standard of dealing with the bank as a sediment source, you guys would absolutely be able to condition that.
And plus, to follow up on Ben's sand reserve, we're not finding that a different sand has been dumped on the beach. You have the stockpile. You'd go there, do the samples there prior to that. So, I mean, that would be kind of advantageous.
And speaking of sand, I mean, one thing we do typically tweak is the mitigation volume. And I personally think their current plan of this sort of replace what's used is not adequate. I think, they came in with the notion that this project worked and we want to replicate it further. Except the one thing they don't want to replicate is the mitigation volume that apparently, according to their claims, is working to protect neighboring beaches. So I think it's got to stay at the 22 yards per linear foot per year throughout the whole project. If we approve this, I think that's something that's got to stay in.
I agree.
I'd have to agree with that as well.
Or else if we're gonna start changing mitigation, we gotta start changing height and all that stuff, you know, as far as
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
concerned, so.
I totally agree, Ernie. If we're looking at this as a pilot project, we have to look at the successes of it. If they're claiming a success, a big part of it is the amount of mitigation sand that's put out, and that is a huge component of what's gonna make me comfortable or not about this.
Right, and I think, again, based on our independent reviewer, the likelihood that that 22 yards will need to be greater in the future to compensate for greater erosion and losses.
Sure.
You know, so
I mean, I think that, 22 cubic yards is a good start with an adaptive protocol that says if a trigger is hit, that shows need for more, then
Well, I would argue that it hasn't been a success. And not only did our own consultant bring up a number of points, but it was admitted that only 6 cubic yards were actually available in that nor'easter. And we saw how the beach dumped down, and we had conflicting opinions on how important that was. And we haven't had satisfactory analyses, as far as I'm concerned, about the megafauna, which I don't want to sound like a broken record, but that is sort of the building block of marine fisheries. And so I would be more comfortable with continuing with the geotubes that we have to see how they perform going forward. And I guess I've said my bit here, so I guess you know where I'm coming from here. So there we go.
Yes, I think, one of the places where I see that the project did not perform the way we would like to see it perform, as our independent reviewer pointed out, to have the sand available from the bank or from the mitigation sand during the storms, the project clearly cannot do that, not during the length of the storm. I mean, some goes quick at the beginning, but then it's gone, and all the stuff that's sitting up on top, unless it's a huge storm. I mean, the project was designed so that even the 100-year storm didn't breach the top of the project, so that stand just sits up on top, waiting for the bulldozer to push it down. And, that's, I don't know, I'm not a bulldozer driver. I don't know how anxious somebody's going to be up there in the middle of a nor'easter pushing sand over the top. I don't know about that. And I wouldn't feel comfortable requiring that because I don't want to put somebody's life in danger.
It's almost like the sand needs to get dumped over before the storm, not after the storm. Like, it's just not available. It's up too high.
No, that was a concern from day one on this design, and the argument of how many tiers it should be, because obviously the sand on top was more like the storage sand. It wasn't really part of the whole equation.
And the superseding order of condition made it quite clear that that 4th tier was temporary until the infrastructure had been altered.
Yeah, and I respectfully disagree with George. I felt like we had to sign that for the 4th tube.
Right.
I mean, I felt like that was a must.
Right.
So, sorry, George.
What was that? What was that comment?
He's taking your name in vain, George.
The 4th tube, I believe that we had to sign that order, and that wasn't really an option not to sign that order. So I respect.
Oh, were you on? Is that Joe?
Yes. Sorry.
You were on the commission then? I didn't realize
we
that.
all had to say.
We were all there. Same board.
Wow.
For the 4th too.
Yeah. No. The only I don't. I should just clarify. I mean, I was just clarifying in terms of town council's engagement and my viewpoint of it, in that there was no instruction from me that the case had to be settled or that they were running out of time and patience or money to fund, prosecuting the appeal of the DEP order and also defending the Superior Court action. So I'm not, when I made that comment and clarified about the context of the, the proposal to send it back to Concom pursuant to the settlement agreement reached between, the settlement group. I can't speak for the intention or thoughts of any of the individual members. So I definitely don't. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. That's your perspective of it. I'm just telling the context that there was no instruction or pressure to, resolve the case. It was just I was participating in that, just representing, the town and making sure that the interests were protected. So Ernie had mentioned that last time that he had a different perspective, and you're noting that now, but I definitely don't in any way. I'm not in any way trying to contradict what you're saying about that and how you felt about it at the time. So just wanted to clarify.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay. Any other items anyone feels we should discuss at this point? Okay. Well, should we get sort of I wonder if we should get a read of the board at this point.
Well, I have one more question. Going back to Ian's analysis of vacant lots and lots with the post-78 homes or the expansions, and how big can a gap lot? I mean, it says gap lot, but if it's multiple lots, how big can a gap lot be?
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know. Does it go as long as it needs to be? Forever? I don't know. How far away can a post-78 house be and still qualify as, well, we got to keep protecting? And I just
So
tend
in
to-
that, Ernie, I mean, I just think that the infrastructure on the road is sort of part and parcel to even the pre-1978 homes. So that's sort of the way I'm thinking about this.
So,
Go ahead.
if we deny this expansion, the infrastructure is still protected by the current geotube, which was the reason why it was installed and given the. So, in other words, voting against.
But we're talking about new gap lots. I realize that the existing structure is the existing structure. That's there. We're talking about
The expansion.
the expansion and the gap lots associated with that. And my point is that the infrastructure is part and parcel to the lots that actually qualify for protection.
Well, Ben, the infrastructure, now on the local bylaw, yes, infrastructure is applicable, but under the state, when we get to the state, then the infrastructure is off the table.
I know, but we've already used the language, and that's the point. And, getting this upheld in if this goes to Superior Court, I just think we don't have much of a case, having already approved a structure that protects infrastructure, protects gap lots.
But then, we didn't initially, and then after the whole process that George can enumerate, it was on a temporary basis. So,
on a temporary basis, triggered by something that it was like a catch-22. It was temporary unless the geotubes got breached, unless the road was, alternative access was granted. None of that was ever done. Where are we now? I mean, is there a road?
So, speaking to the gap lots in the current structure, and I guess how that would apply with the expansion, the state didn't allow 4 full tubes on the gap lots. So that's going to come into us re-engineering this structure and saying, well, the state previously said that 3 tiers was enough to protect infrastructure or those gap lots, and 4 tiers is only okay for the structure. So then we're going to have to go through with our local and do the same thing, is the only way I would think that would be appropriate to apply it. I also do question us not having statements from the DPW, from the people who run that infrastructure, really documenting how far it is and what we're talking about here.
and to reiterate Ashley's point, the DPW hasn't weighed in on, on an imminent threat to the lots, both vacant and otherwise, north of the current geotube array. And I would assume that if they felt that it was under imminent danger, then they would have done as they did previously in 2012.
Have they been contacted?
I asked about it during the hearings.
Yeah, so,
But I don't know.
Jeff, do you know if they've been following this?
I think everyone has been following this.
But
They haven't provided
In
any,
town, you have to do a legal letter or some formal request at the DP.
I mean, all of the notice requirements have been met. I mean, if it's information that you guys asked for that wasn't received, I mean, it's obviously the applicant's burden to gather the information necessary to complete the filing. So if you guys feel that that's short, I mean, that's the determination you guys can certainly make.
Well, that can be, if, that can be worked out in order if we get an idea of the read of the, knowing that, let's put it that way, that can be worked out in order, knowing how the board will vote. I don't think it's necessary to go get that specific on each item at the moment. So,
Can you lean a little bit more into your mic?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, you might just point it back up to you and only adjust it to George if he's going to
How
talk.
about that? Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, so at this point, I'd suggest that we get a read on the board at this point, and it'll sort of help us and Jeff decide what direction to go here and what he's writing up.
I have no bearing on deciding what direction we're going.
So I guess I'll start with I'll start with myself. Just I'm opposed at this point. So
I'm in favor.
you're in favor.
If we can modify it, I'm in favor.
Okay.
And, yeah, I'm in favor with some modifications as well.
Okay. Ashley.
I'm opposed under both the state and the local.
Okay.
I'm opposed under both state and the local.
Same with me, I'm opposed on both.
Okay. So at that point, that's 4-3. So we'd be going for, to clarify, I'm opposed on design. I'm not opposed to protecting the houses, and I don't suggest going to the current materials that are down there or ones that have been used in the past. So I guess we've given you direction on that. What else would you be looking for, Jeff?
That's really kind of what we're looking for. It's just obviously what direction the board is wanting to go. And then we can put together an order for you guys to review. I know we had the extension granted last time to the 20th. We do have a regular meeting on the 19th. I mean, I can try to get a draft together as fast as you guys want it. I mean, it's obviously a priority to get done. So I'm not sure about getting it done and reviewed by council by tomorrow. That's probably too aggressive of a time frame, just because I need to put pen to paper a little bit, and then have time for George to review it. So I think we'd be looking to kind of have that draft to you by the regular meeting on the 19th, if that is the prerogative. Or if you guys want to discuss it more, you certainly can. I mean, it's your guys' decision to make.
Well, I mean, if it's a point of, if it's going to help you out in writing up our thoughts as opposed to what you're thinking.
Well, I mean, I think knowing where the board is kind of basing where we're not meeting performance standards is always nice to have an idea. I mean, that's kind of the crux of the issue is what we're having difficulty meeting. I mean, I think it's pretty clear and on the record for what a lot of the objections are, because they've come up in discussion. And denials are a little different in the sense that you're just kind of, I mean, you're applying performance standards and providing the basis behind it. So I think it's something where I don't feel uncomfortable if that's the direction the board wants to go and putting that together for you guys to review and then modify as necessary.
Okay.
Obviously with council present too. So, I mean, I think my goal of the meeting today was just to get direction one way or the other for where we were headed. Okay. So.
Okay. So that's where we're headed. So I don't know if there's any more to meet.
So, we'll need to, you guys will need to carry it. So if you guys want to take it up on the 19th on your regular meeting,
Sure.
I obviously didn't prepare a draft for tonight because I think until about 2 minutes ago, there was some question on what was going to happen. So we can have it ready for you and reviewed by then and hopefully get George. George, are you still there?
Yeah.
Are you available for that regular Wednesday meeting on the 19th of next week?
No. I'm sorry, I've got a 40B hearing that night, previously scheduled.
Wicked.
Do you need me for that?
Well, I guess the question is, if we draft that, is there a way that, do you think we can complete your review of that and make any edits as necessary prior to that date?
Oh, yes, yeah, for sure, definitely.
Yeah, I think we should be fine then. Do you think if we review that draft, not to put you on the spot, George, and you've had a chance to review with it, are you comfortable with not being available for that day?
I think so, because I don't think you have any, I don't think I'm participating really at that point. I could certainly answer any questions as they came up. I could be, I can have my cell phone on and, if you have questions that come up, you could call me, but I don't anticipate that I would need to participate.
So if you guys are comfortable with that, and George is comfortable with that,
Yeah.
I can be comfortable with that too.
So is that a formal vote then?
No,
No.
I would think once we have the actual orders in front of us, we can do a
Okay.
formal vote.
Yeah. So I think that the kind of the direction from the board, and I don't want to say it's not a formal vote per se, but the instruction issued by a majority of the board is to draft a negative order of conditions. I'll just make that clear.
Okay.
Is that what's
So.
everyone
Can I
else?
just ask too, is that your only option for a night for this?
Well, it's our regular meeting, George. Our other choice would be, we typically do fill viewings on Monday, so people may have blocked out time for that. We could post for a meeting for that day, if that works better for people. I can have it done by then. This is obviously,
I can do whatever day.
I can do Monday.
I can do Monday.
So that's Monday the
17th.
does that work for you, George? Monday the 17th?
Yeah, that night I could be available, or if you're meeting at 4, I could be available on the 17th.
Does that work for everybody else?
Yes.
All right, so why don't we'll do a special that day, and we'll book it for 4 p.m. And we'll try to fit, sorry, I can't necessarily always get the calendars up for in here while we're in here. So that's Monday the 17th. I'm pretty sure I'm available for that. I should probably know.
what time? 4?
We'll do 4 p.m. It looks like the upstairs is available then. But we will. We'll find, I don't think that meeting will necessarily take long. So there's NP and EDC in this room at 6. So we could probably book from 4 to 6 that day. And then upstairs, there's something that goes to 5 that we may be able to work with. But I would anticipate probably being in here at 4 p.m. But we'll get that squared away and get all the information. But we'll do 4 p.m. on Monday the 17th.
Okay, so I guess if there's nothing else, we'll continue to the
To the 17th?
17th.
Yes. We still have those other items on our agenda to take care
Okay,
of.
we have one more item. Thank you, everybody.
To give people a little time to clear out of here.
Yeah, okay.
Am I all set as well?
Yes, George.
Yeah, thanks, George.
Thank you, George. We'll see you the 17th.
Thank you, George.
Thanks an awful lot.
Thank you.
Bye now.
We'll have Chaz start coming up.
Oh, no contact tomorrow.
Did you hear from Heritage?
He was on the phone with Heritage when the meeting started, so.
Well, come on. He's not gonna be able to trap them in.
Oh, yeah, so that'll be clear. There's no meeting tomorrow.
Right.
That is, we'll cancel that meeting.
Do I need to use microphone or just walk up here?
You can use my mic.
Well, now on to something.
I understand. It's okay. Good evening. So I was just on the phone with Amy Honig from Natural Heritage. So what I have an email from her. Actually, if you do you have her email? I forwarded it to you, Jeff. Basically, she received, and correct me if I'm wrong with any of this timeline, she stated to me that she received from Jeff the 2005 beach plan. She hasn't had a chance to review that plan yet. I guess she received it last Thursday or something. She was gonna hold off and wait until she got the hard copy documents. And I said, the hard copy document's not gonna say anything different than what the digital copy is. Is there any way she could, I asked her if she could review and at least have a determination by next Tuesday. Now, what she did agree to is Children's Beach is not in the area of protection, protected species, so it doesn't have to be reviewed. So she's willing to let go on that one. So I don't know what that specifically means, if that means that you can make a determination on Children's Beach. But the other three, she probably won't be able to ascertain until next Tuesday. I asked her if she could give us a determination by Tuesday. That way, we do have Concom next Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to get to. So not exactly what I was hoping to hear, but at least she's saying that Children's Beach doesn't have to be reviewed, and that hopefully she can have a determination. If her words, all the documentation that she received is sufficient to answer the 2017 questions. Now, what statement she made to me was, if the 2005 beach plan was satisfactory, then why wasn't that shared in 2017? I don't know. All I know is that's what she stated to me. So that's basically my conversation with her. And Jeff's got a copy of the email. Go from there. So what does that mean then for?
Can we do a partial approval?
I thought,
No.
we
'cause
talked about
it's
last
the
time
whole
we couldn't.
plan.
Right,
Yeah.
so we just wait
So
till
it's
next
gotta wait.
We have to wait till Wednesday.
Sheesh, it's really a drag.
Yeah.
I was a little bit frustrated when she said that she was waiting for the hard copy document. I don't understand that.
That's a little, yeah, it's
ridiculous.
crazy.
She said it's an extensive document, over 200 pages.
Maybe she hadn't looked at it.
To me, I could read through the digital copies much faster than the hard copy, but that's just me.
She could have printed it.
Now, so if, I know it's one application, but the plans should be separate. Why can't we approve?
He'd have to amend his order, because we're,
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, we're screwed.
I mean, I'll take the hit that I put it as one package, but doing site approvals as long as I've done for the military, and I understand that it's probably better to separate them, but we were trying to be expeditious too, and not get bogged down.
All right, so I think, I'm gonna step in. I know this is gonna be. I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I think I'm going to. I think given the choice in the situation and knowing we're waiting for Heritage to issue out the determination, I don't necessarily think you will want to issue out an order, because that would be taking action on the portion of the project that we can't take action to for Heritage. But I'm wondering if you could almost do something to authorize starting on a portion of the project, waiting for the order to issue. We've never done that before, but I think you could.
I know I'm gonna sound like a big jerk here because it's the town and it's access and the school did it, but would we allow this for any other project?
Well, the easy answer to that is no.
No. So I
So-
don't think we should be doing
No,
it
I'm
here.
just saying that I think that it's like what I said. I can't believe I was actually going to say it, but I said it. So, hopefully it's there. I mean, just to kind of run through the history on the beach management plan for Jetties Beach. In the last calendar year, we have submitted to Natural Heritage 4 different documents now that detail our compliance to the guidelines, dating all the way back to like last October. frankly, I don't know any more that we could give them that would change it. We've rewritten the beach management plan. We've sent it to them. We sent in a document talking about looking to go on to the habitat conservation plan as part of their certificate of inclusion. And the feedback we got from that was, well, the activities you guys are seeking are approvable activities because they're not the 3 activities that are listed within that. So because we weren't seeking beach driving or access of that nature, we were not allowed to participate in that program. So then they sent the whole thing back. So now we've sent them the original beach management plan, which actually includes the formal of adoption of the state and federal guidelines for managing plovers and terns, essentially, as part of that document in its entirety. Because when we had talked to them before, they had wanted to update to include all of the activities, and then when we included all of the activities, they told us we couldn't include all of the activities. So to say that from our staff, I mean, it got to the point last week where we've had to schedule another visit for them to come out and look at community sailings operation at Jetties Beach while they're in place, because up until last week, despite the number of documents and things that have gone back and forth, they believed that community sailing was driving boats into the water and launching them off of trailers on like an hourly basis on that site. I mean, we've taken pictures of hand carts that get used for boats. So they have a very gross misunderstanding of what that site does, even having visited. And to say that they are frustrating to deal with is putting it mildly. So it's not like it's something where inaction from our end has caused this. We've been sending them stuff for a long time to deal with it, and just sent them the newest batch. And I will guarantee you that we are the only community in the Commonwealth that has regulatory authority to issue things. The police here have the authority to issue tickets for kiteboarders that enter within a 200-yard restriction zone from symbolic fencing. No other community in the Commonwealth does that. So they have those regulations. I mean, it's something that we take seriously. So I don't know what, almost flummoxed it, I don't know what more they could possibly want for this whole time. And you're dealing with 3 or 4 separate people, and they don't seemingly communicate. They're the worst.
If you don't mind, I have something else to add. That we got an email today. From a visitor who has been coming here for quite some time. And I think what's actually one of the things you mentioned is, would we treat this any different? The answer is you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. And I understand, I get it, but I do want to add this in the, so you guys complete transparency. When I talked to Amy earlier, I said, so the Moby mats, I mean, what's the difference us putting the boardwalks down the Moby mats? And she says, well, those are, non-compliant too, essentially. That they were never reviewed and they shouldn't be used, and nor should we put them down now. So there's something important with that now. This email, which we received earlier today from Gloria Russo. Good morning. My husband and I have been coming to Nantucket for over 15 years. We have a daughter, grandson, and extended family who live on the island. We arrived on 6/8 and was disappointed to see that the plastic beach walkways at 39 and 40 were not installed yet. We have been every year, got the last 3 weeks in June, and this is the first time that they were missing. Since my husband has a disability, the walkway makes it easier for him to push the beach buggy. I'm not sure if you eliminated them or just late getting them in. Since there are so many seniors come to enjoy Nantucket in June, I would implore you to keep them. They make walking the beach so much easier. I'm not trying to influence, but I just want to make sure that everybody sees the big picture on everything. I absolutely agree that every project should be treated the same. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of this too. We're going to start seeing more of these. And I completely understand, but
You guys should have filed an application like months ago.
I
So,
completely agree.
it's one of those things. It's not on us for not approving it now. We didn't
I'm not
have
blaming.
this in
I'm
time.
just sharing the information. that's
Should
all.
we put this on the 17th agenda just in case he gets it early?
Yeah, why don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, just in case.
We can always
Yeah, I
just
mean, I would call
continue
and say we're
on.
gonna meet on the 17th and the 19th, so if she can review it
Well, you've
Monday.
got the email too,
and
and
I'll
she's
try to
gonna
follow
try to have a
And-
determination by Tuesday.
I mean, and just to kind of go in further, I don't want to make it sound like I'm just bashing natural heritage, but last year on our non-compliant Moby mats, their deputy director and I stood on the Moby mats looking at the piping plover and asking if there were any issues of compliance on the site, and his answer was no, while we were standing on the mats. So it's difficult because sometimes it's
Crazy, yes.
it just is. So I'll stop my rant now. It's on tape, so people can watch it later. But that's sometimes the frustration with it is we asked you, you said no, and now you're saying that there was, but you were standing right on it. So why wasn't it then? It's more frustrating than the HTC. Not saying something. That's it though.
Okay. I don't think there's a problem with, I think everyone's in agreement with the access. It's just a matter of, getting their point and seeing what they have to say. Oh, no, I get it. It's a valid point. Okay. So, okay. I say, so, well, we'll continue, I guess, till, on that one, till hopefully the 17th. I don't know if there's anything else in the standard stuff we need to go
Nope.
through. Do we have
We're good.
Do we have
Okay.
minutes to approve, or is that coming up Wednesday?
are we doing the minister? Appro-
Oh yeah, you do have minutes that we sent you. You can wait till the 17th though if you want to.
Yeah, I didn't see him.
Okay, we'll wait 17th on that. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.